Greetings, I'm Colin, and welcome to Meet Me at the Table. Today, Barrett and I are going to do a playthrough of the Prelude scenario for Pandemic Legacy Season 0. If you're curious how this game plays differently from the other Pandemics, I highly recommend you hang out here. Don't worry, there are no spoilers for the actual story of the campaign. The two objectives that you have in the Prelude that you see up here on top, you will not use for the campaign, and we won't read any of the flavor text. We'll just do the basic game so you understand how it works. So let's go ahead and set up the game quick because there are a few changes from General Pandemic, and then we'll jump into the playthrough. The goal in Pandemic Legacy Season 0 will always change, so unlike in the other games of Pandemic, you'd be trying to cure the 4 diseases. That is not always the case here. There's no diseases. Instead, there's agents, or reds, that are on the board. We have 2 objectives for our prologue. This objective here, in order to set it up, we need to separate the 11 Europe City cards from the player deck, shuffle them, and place one face down underneath this. Then we'll shuffle the rest into the player deck. Here I have my 11 Europe player cards, and you can tell that they're player cards when they have this side type of backing. So I'm going to randomly grab one of these, place it underneath this card, and place it up in the objectives area. Now, in order for us to complete this objective, which is retrieve Project Medusa's samples, we need to acquire a target in one unknown city in Europe. This card denotes which city it's in. If we are able to complete it, we'll put one of these tokens on there, and if we fail it, we'll place a token on it like so. Now, these will come from the Legacy deck. I'm not reading you any of the other cards from the Legacy deck. Here we're just showing you how to set up our objectives. Now, this objective here says flip this card over and place it on the board in the operations area. We do have a note here that we do not need to put the Novosibirsk city card under this card. And yes, I think I said that city name right. And that's a huge thanks to Rodney Smith from Watch It Played. If you're looking for just a tutorial of how to play the game instead of actually a playthrough, I highly recommend Watch It Played. Rodney Smith does a great job explaining this game. Heck, I learned from him. So I will put in the description below a link to his video. Check it out. For this objective, we're trying to find Agent Sabik. In order to find him, we're going to place this acquired target location in the specific location in Novosibirsk. What we need to do is drive a team that matches the affiliation of Novosibirsk. So you can see this one will be driving this team, and you'll see why it's that team in a second. We have to drive that team in there and do an acquire target action in order to complete this objective. So if we can complete these 2 objectives before we lose the game, and you're going to lose the games in very similar ways to what you've seen with Pandemic. If we can't place another one of the red agents, we'll lose. If our player deck runs out, we lose. If we've had too many incidents, it's kind of like outbreaks, we lose. So what we're trying to do is complete these objectives before any of those other events happen. I've placed both of these objectives up here in the operations area, and we have a target token here in Novosibirsk to remind ourselves that's where we need to go to try and find Agent Sabik. In the prologue, you'll use one of these temporary aliases. I'm going to play as the clinic planner, and Barrett is going to play as the medical conference coordinator. We each will have special abilities during the game, so mine will be when you do the build safe house action, which is similar to a research station, except for you can't fly between them. Whenever you do that, you do not need a city card. And then as an action while at a safe house, I can discard a city card to move to any city on the board. So I do have that ability. Barrett will have the ability, as an action you may move a team or a different player pawn up to 3 cities away from its current city. The team or pawn does not enter any other cities in between, it just moves from one to the other. And then we both have the cover ability, because when you're playing the campaign, when you lose cover, you're actually going to be scratching things off on your passport. You're not going to have one of these for the prologue, so here, whenever you lose cover, you're just simply going to discard one card from your hand. You're going to grab one of the safe house tokens as well as each of your player pawns and start off in Washington. In Pandemic, you have an infection deck. For this game, you're going to have a threat deck. And you're going to do the same thing that you do in Pandemic. You're going to shuffle this up and then draw 3 random ones, and you're going to place 3 of the agents in those first 3. Then you're going to draw 3 more, and you're going to set 2 agents in each of those cities. And then you're going to draw the final 3, and you're going to place 1 agent in each of the cities. I've already done that on the board. That's very similar to Pandemic. You're also going to place the threat level at the bottom spot at 2, and every time you have an escalation, which is the same as an epidemic, this will be increased by 1, and this tells you how many threat cards to draw at the end of each turn. Next, you'll want to check your funding level. For Prologue, it's nice and simple. You're at 5. That means you get to place all the 5 basic event cards right into your player deck. You're then going to want to give this a good shuffle and then deal out, depending upon the amount of players, the amount of cards that you need. For a 2-player game, I'm going to deal out 4 cards to each player. We've dealt out our hands. They recommend that you play with your hands face up on the table. So we have these 4 cards. Wow, 3 European cards. Holy moly, that's super helpful, and you'll see why. And Bernd has 1 European card as well as an event called Airlift. Then what you need to do, just like Pandemic, you'll take the rest of the player cards, separate them out into even piles of however many escalation cards that you're putting into your deck. I'm putting 5, so I'm going to separate these out into 5 even decks. Here we have our 5 piles. Now, I finished when I separated them out as evenly as possible. These 4 all have the same amount of cards. This one has 1 less. So I need to remember this one has 1 less, and it will need to go on the bottom of the deck. So I will then place 1 of these escalation cards on top of each one of these, and then shuffle each one individually, starting with the one that had the least amount of cards in it, and then taking this one, shuffling that one together, and so on and so forth until I've created my player deck. The player deck will be placed right here on the board. 2 more items before we jump into the playthrough. Do you remember how I had to choose 1 European location for where this Medusa sample is, and that card has actually been removed from our player deck? The nice thing is, since we have European cards in our hand, we know that that cannot be where that specific target is. So what I can do is, wherever we have European player cards in our hand, we can place X's in those locations. So I have a total of 4 in between Bernd and my hands, so I'm going to place those out now. So based on the cards in our hand, we know that the Medusa sample is not in Rome, Istanbul, Leningrad, or Warsaw. Finally, let's talk about the actions. Most of these will be very familiar to you, with a couple that might be a little bit different if you've played Pandemic. Drive Ferry, you're simply going to move to an adjacent location following any of the lines on the board. Nice and simple. For a commercial flight, you can simply reveal an allied city card from your hand to move your pawn to that matching city. Don't even have to discard it. For a neutral city, you'll have to reveal it and discard it. And then for the Soviet locations, you cannot fly there. It's not possible. Next, we have our unrecorded flight. You can discard the city card that matches the city that you're in to move to any city. You can also just neutralize an agent. Take an action, remove 1 agent that's on the board. You can do the share intel, so that means if you are in a location that you have a card that matches that same location, you can give it to a player, or if you're in a location with someone else that has the card of that same location, you can take it from them. Next, we have Build Safe House. You can discard the city card that matches your city to build a safe house there. Safe houses protect you from surveillance. So that's going to be something new, which we'll talk about while we do our playthrough. But that is where you lose your cover. And if you lose cover right now, we'd actually have to discard cards. Okay, here we get into a couple of the new items. Currently, with one of our objectives, we do not know the location of where that objective is. What we can do is try and identify that target city. So while at a safe house, we can discard 3 city cards matching your region to reveal the target city of your region under an objective card. So that means we have to discard 3 European cards, which, crazy enough, I actually have in my hand. Discard 3 European cards at a safe house that's in that same region to then be able to reveal where that actual location of the Medusa sample project is. And you'll see how this works as we do our playthrough. Next, we have Assemble a Team. While at a safe house, discard 5 cards matching the affiliation of your city to put a team of that affiliation there. So, if we were at a city that was an allied city and we discarded 5 cards that had the ally symbol on it, we could then create a team. And teams are super powerful agents that we have put together, and they can go and mop up lots of the agents. If they're in a location that matches their specific loyalty type, at the mop-up step, they're going to remove all agents in that location, which is really nice. And once again, you'll see how that works. You also can move your cities as not your cities, move one of these teams 1 space with the Drive Ferry team. And you can do that from anywhere on the board. I don't need to be in the same space as the city. Now, acquiring a target. This is what we need to do for Agent Sabik, and also what we need to do with the Medusa sample after we've determined the city that it's in. We need to select an acquire target objective. If you have an active team in the required city, you complete it. If not, you fail the objective. So we have to get a team of agents into that location that match that location's affiliation, spend an action to do the acquired targets, and then we'd complete it. With that, I think we're ready to start. So we're supposed to randomly choose who's going to go first. I'm going to be a 1 through 3. Barrett's going to be 4 through 6. I rolled a 2, so that means I will be the first player to go. Let's go ahead and take a look at the turn order and then get started. To start the game, we'll start with our check surveillance step. Now what we do there is we look at the location where our pawn is and we see if there's any eye symbols on it. You can see here in Washington we have no eye symbols versus, let's say, Havana here has one eye symbol. So if I had started my turn in Havana, I would have one of my cover lost. And remember, as a temporary alias, that would be we just discard one card from our hand. Now, if we were in Havana, but there was also a safe house here, even though there's an eye symbol here, this safe house protects us from that surveillance. So we wouldn't have to lose cover, or we wouldn't have to discard a card if we're playing with our temporary aliases. So for right now, that step is done. Now we can do 4 actions. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to discard this card, the Shanghai card. I can do this because of my special ability. My special ability notes that as an action, while at a safe house, discard a city card to move to any city on the board. I'm going to fly myself all the way over to Moscow. That's for my first action. My second action, I'm going to build a safe house here because, as you can see, that surveillance is pretty terrible right out in Moscow. Now, normally you'd have to discard the Moscow city card from your hand in order to build this safe house, which of course I put upside down. But my other special ability allows me to build a safe house simply with an action. I don't need the city card. So I've completed 2 actions, I get 2 more. For my third action, I'm going to do the Identify Target City action. So while I'm at a safe house, I can discard 3 cards that match the region that I'm in to reveal a target city of a region that's under an objective card. Well, we picked a Europe card that's underneath our Retrieve Project Medusa sample objective. So fortunately, I had 3 Europe cards in my hand. I'm going to discard all 3 of those, and that's going to allow us to reveal the card that is underneath that objective. We're now going to know where this Medusa sample is. Being able to do this first turn is pretty insane and quite lucky, but we'll take it. Okay, we know it's in Prague. So now what I've placed is a bullseye token here to denote that this is where we need to be able to drive one of our teams that has a Russian affiliation to Prague and then do the acquire target action to be able to complete this objective. Yeah, being able to do that first turn was pretty awesome. I still have 1 more action, so I'm just going to simply remove one of these red agents from the board. I've done my 4 actions. Now what we do is we move into the mop-up step, but we're going to ignore that until we start getting teams on the board, because when there's no teams on the board, the mop-up step doesn't have any effect. Step 4 will be to draw 2 player cards from here, so I have Algiers and Peking in my hand. And then finally we'll draw threat cards. You'll draw threat cards equal to the threat level that we have here, so we're going to draw 2 cards. So our first card will be Paris, and our second one will be Osaka. We'll place 1 red agent here in Paris and 1 way over here in Osaka. That'll complete my turn. And remember, at any time during my turn, if I had more than 7 cards in my hand, I'd immediately have to discard ones, or I have to play event cards in my hand. Fortunately, I used all my cards in my hand, so I have 2 cards. Just the 2 that I drew. Now it'll be Barrett's turn.
Well, Colin had pretty much one of the most amazing turns of all time. So sadly, I am not going to be able to rival that. But what I am going to do is check surveillance. And again, like Colin said, there are none there, so we don't have to worry about that. Now I get to do my 4 actions. And sadly, they're not going to be super awesome, but they are still going to be effective. I'm going to go 1 up to New York as a move, 2 over to Madrid, and then I'm going to spend 2 more just to clear some people from there, because you still have to get these guys off the board, no matter how much other stuff is going on. Now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and draw my 2 cards. I've got a special event, Counterintelligence. Put 1 card from the threat discard pile into the game end area. So that's something we might want to do in the future. And we also have another one. We also got Cairo, which is another affiliation for the Russians, which could help us. The last part of our turn is to draw some cards from the evil threat deck. What is going to happen to us? The first one we have is Bangkok. And the second card we have is Havana. So we're going to go place some people there. By people, I mean agents, and we're going to place 1 in Bangkok. And Colin, go ahead and throw 1 over in Havana.
For my turn, the first thing we need to look at is surveillance. Technically, I need to discard 3 cards, but I have a safe house here, so I'm safe. No problem. So the first thing I'm going to do for my turn is I'm going to spend 1 action to remove 1 agent. Action 2, I'm going to move to here. Action 3, I'm going to move to Peking. And then action 4, I'm simply going to place another safe house here. That way, I'm hoping that Barrett can maybe show up over here and we can share some cards. We're trying to get a total of 5 of these Soviet symbols so that we can create a team. We'll skip that mop-up step. We'll move right into drawing player cards, Sydney and Mexico City. Wow, we are getting lucky with this escalation. We'll then draw our 2 threat cards. We have Karachi and we have Tokyo. Let's place our agents, 1 in Karachi and 1 in Tokyo. Now we'll move on to Barrett's turn.
We're going to go ahead and check surveillance. There actually isn't any in my city I'm in. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to play this counterintelligence, which is allowing me to put 1 card from the threat discard pile into the game end area. And we're going to choose Buenos Aires. The reason we're doing this is because you haven't seen an escalation card. I guarantee you it's going to be my draw. So we want to get the cards that potentially have those 3 agents out of here so they don't cause any issues to us. So we're going to get rid of that card, and then I'm going to continue on with my turn. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to play my airlift. Now you have to remember, events are free actions. So I actually haven't used any actions yet. These are just all bonus, super awesome actions. And this one says move a pawn to any city or move a team to any city. And I'm going to move myself because I've got a plan. Actually, I think Colin and I have a plan. And with my airlift, I'm going to drop myself right in Peking, and Colin is going to give me a Peking card as my first action. Now that would be considered a share intel action because, you know, we're sharing our intel. My second action, I move over to this city called Novosibirsk, is I believe the pronunciation. We're going to also remove these 2 agents from Novosibirsk as well. Now, of course, I have to draw 2 cards. I'm kind of not wanting to do this because we haven't seen an escalation. I bet we're going to see one now. Oh, we got a Europe card, so I'm going to go ahead and keep Moscow, which is really cool. But this has to be it. No, it's not. We got another forecast. Oh, wow, we're getting really lucky. This one says, look at the next 6 threat cards, rearrange them in any order, and return them to the top of the threat deck. Oh, we escaped another bullet. We're now going to have to draw from our threat deck, and the 2 cities we have drawn are Shanghai, and we've also drawn Lagos. So Colin and I are going to go ahead and place 1 in Shanghai and 1 in Lagos.
For my turn, we'll check surveillance. We have a safe house, so we're good to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a flight, and I'm going to do a flight to an allied city. That means I just have to show the card. We're going to fly to Sydney, and I get to keep this. Really cool. I like how he changed this mechanic from regular Pandemic. So I'll keep this card and fly to Sydney for action 1. We'll move ourselves into Sydney, and then for action 2, we're going to take this line and move ourselves to Los Angeles. We'll set ourselves here in Los Angeles and then remove 2 agents there for actions 3 and 4. All right, you guys ready for an escalation? We know it's coming. Our first card that we draw will be the escalation. There it is.
Boom.
And our second one will be Pyongyang. There are 3 steps to the escalation. First, we need to increase threats. We're going to advance the threat level marker 1 space. Then we're going to add agents. We're going to draw the bottom card from the threat deck and add 3 agents to that city. Discard that card to the threat discard pile. Then we're going to intensify. Shuffle the cards in the threat discard pile and put them on top of the threat deck. We'll first move that threat up. We're still going to be at 2, only drawing 2 cards from the threat deck. We'll do that until we get to here, which is 3, and if ever we get to the end, which hopefully we don't, it's 4. Then I'm going to draw that bottom card, and we have Washington. Are you serious? They're going to jump into Washington and throw 3 agents there. Finally then, we'll take these, shuffle them up, and put them back onto this deck. We'll place those 3 agents here in Washington. They saw that we put a safe house in Moscow and they retaliated. Finally, we still have to do step 5, which is draw our threat cards. So we are going to get Paris and we're going to get Santiago. Barrett and I will each place an agent in Santiago and Paris. And now we'll move to Barrett's turn.
Checking our surveillance in my location, we don't say it, and no, I'm not going to try to say the name again. For my first action, though, I am going to use my temporary alias power, which as an action, you may move a team or different player's pawn up to 3 cities away from your current city. So I'm going to go ahead and move Colin over into my area. Now, the other part of this card does say the team pawn does not enter any cities in between. So he's not entering any of these. I'm just going to go ahead and move him to Saigon. And then with my second action, I again am going to move Colin. He's just going to be moving like crazy. I'm going to go ahead and put him right up here because then we can go ahead and hopefully get that card into my hand next turn. So we're going to move him up there again using my power. And yes, this can be used more than once a turn. Now I've got 2 actions left and I'm just going to go ahead and move over to here. And next turn we can again share surveillance. So we're going to go into our mop-up action, and there isn't anything to mop up, so we're just going to draw 2 player cards. Our first card is Lagos. Our second card is going to be Manila. Now at the end of my turn, I have to discard down to 7, and I've got a mountain of cards. Now these are key to our victory, so we're going to keep these. So I have to go ahead and discard these, or at least 2 of them, because I have kept 5. We're going to discard these 2 cards because it's really hard to fly to those cities compared to flying to allied cities. The final thing I have to do, of course, is draw our threat cards, and we're still at a threat level of 2. We're going to put a character in Bangkok. We're going to put another agent in Rome. So we're just going to go ahead and place our agents in those cities.
To start my turn, the first thing I need to check is surveillance. I'm good to go. There's no eye symbols here. So then for my first action, I'm going to go ahead and share intel with Bernd, giving him Pyongyang.
Which then is going to put me above 7 cards again. So I'm going to go ahead and discard my Saigon card.
After that, for action 2, I'm going to simply remove this agent. Action 3, I'm going to move myself over to Peking. And action 4, I'm going to go ahead and discard a card. I can do this because of my special ability. I can discard a card while at a safe house to go anywhere in the world. And I'm going to fly myself over here to Washington. I've completed my 4 actions, nothing to mop up. I'll go ahead and draw 2 cards. I get Khartoum, and I will get, another escalation. So we're going to increase threat, add agents, and then intensify. We did expect that escalation to come very quickly after that first one, since the first one was so far away. It was at the bottom of that first stack of cards. So we're going to have Cairo that we're going to place 3 agents in. And now we'll shuffle these cards and then place them on top of this deck. We'll place the 3 agents here in Cairo. My turn, unfortunately, is not complete. I now have to draw 2 threat cards. Our first one is Santiago. We're going to have 3 agents over there. And our next one is, Cairo. So we're going to have our first incident. First, we'll place an agent here in Santiago. And then in Cairo, we're going to place one of these incident markers. Now, if any of our agents were in this location, we would lose 1 cover, unless there was a safe house here. But since none of us are here, we're fine. Now what we need to do is draw the bottom card of the threat deck and read the incident report. We'll go ahead and grab that bottom threat card, and we'll look at this section. It says Sleeper Cells Activate. Place an agent in every city with 1 or more incident token in Africa. After reading this card will now go into the game end area. If we look here in Africa, all the locations are fine except for Cairo, which just outbroke. And since we can't place another agent there, we're going to have to place another incident marker. Now, if ever you place multiple incident markers at the same time, you'll still only draw 1 card from the bottom of the threat deck for that specific incident effect. But since we placed one here, we're going to have to draw yet another one. And don't forget, if ever we have all of the incident tokens out on the board and we need to place another one, that's one of the ways we lose. We'll go ahead and grab the next bottom card here, and this one says Sleeper Cells Activate. Place an agent in every city with 1 or more incident tokens in Europe. Fortunately, Europe has no incident markers on it, so we're good to go. Now it's back to Bernd.
We're going to go ahead and check surveillance. I've got nothing where I am. And remember that awesome turn Colin had at the beginning? It was a really good one, Colin.
Yeah,
now it's my turn to have one. I'm going to move over there, and then, of course, I'm going to get rid of all 5 of my cards. And this is going to allow us to make a Soviet team that we can drive around and complete our objectives. So we're going to place it down in Peking, and then for my third action, I'm going to go ahead and move him over to Novosibirsk, and we're going to go ahead and do an acquire target action with our team. So doing the acquire target action allows us to make sure that our objective has been complete. So we're going to go ahead and place this token down on here. Now, normally we would read this 214, but again, we're going to try to remain spoiler free for you. And we're just going to say that we have completed this objective. After my amazing turn, I do, of course, get to draw 2 cards. We're going to go ahead and take Hanoi into our hand, and we're also going to take Lima into our hand. We're going to go ahead and move into our draw threat cards. But before we do, I do want to talk about the mop-up step, because now we actually have a team out there. If we ever ended our turn with one of our teams in a place with agents, during the mop-up step, you would remove all the agents from that. Of course, they do have to share the affiliation for that mop-up to actually be able to happen. Now we're going to go ahead and draw our threat cards. We have Rome, and our second card is Bangkok. So Colin and I are just going to go ahead and place the agents on the board.
For my turn, first I need to check surveillance. There's no surveillance here. Plus, I have a safe house, so I'm good. I'm going to spend 3 actions and just get rid of all 3 of these agents. And then for my 4th action, I can discard any card while I'm at a safe house to go anywhere on the board. That means I'm going to fly myself over here to Rome, and then that way, next turn, I can start clearing some agents from there. I'll go ahead and draw my 2 player cards. I have Madrid, And I have Paris. We'll jump to the threat step. We can ignore the mop-up step because our team, there's no agents there. We're going to draw 2 cards. We have Paris. Oh, that's right next to where I am. And we have Lagos. I'll place my agents both in Paris and Lagos. And now let's move to Barrett's turn and hopefully win the game.
The first part of my turn is we're going to go ahead and check surveillance. Oh no, there's an eyeball on Peking, but that's okay. We're safe because of the safe house. Now what we're going to do is move into our 4 actions. Our first one is we're going to again use our temporary alias, which is amazing power. It allows us not only to move pawns 3, but we could move our team 3 spaces. And that's what we're going to do. Of course, they don't stop in the cities. 1, 2, 3, they're going to end their turn in Istanbul. Of course, I have to turn them on their side. They can't be active in Istanbul because they do not share an affiliation. Now for my second activation, I'm again going to move our team, and I can do that anywhere on the board, which is already awesome in itself. I'm going to move back up to Prague, and we're going to go ahead and flip him back over. Prague is an amazing city. I've been there so many times. I used to live actually in Poland, so being able to visit Prague is a lot of fun. And if you haven't been there, I strongly suggest it. Now that we're in Prague, we're going to go ahead and do our 1, 2, 3, our third action, which is going to be acquire target. So we're going to go ahead and finish this off by acquiring this target and completing our second objective. And because Colin actually showed us it was in Prague earlier in the game, we have completed our second objective, retrieve the Project Medusa sample. So we're going to go ahead, put our token on there. And again, we would read this from our book, but we're remaining spoiler free. We're not going to do that. Completing both our objectives actually is a great way to win the game.
Baron said it the best. If you want to win the game, you want to complete as many objectives as possible. Now, if you have just completed one objective, you're still considered to have succeeded and you'll move forward throughout the campaign. But if you have failed both, then you don't. And you can read the rulebook on what the differences are when you're actually playing the campaign. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful to show you how the game plays. I will say this was incredibly easy. When we played it 4 player as a test, it was not that easy. We won just by the skin of our teeth. So it is, of course, it's just like Pandemic. Sometimes things are easier, sometimes they're harder, just dependent upon the cards. But overall, I'm really excited. I think Barrett's excited. Are you excited?
This game is really well done. I'm super excited to continue this campaign.
Yeah, so we're pumped to see what is in our future with this game. Hope this helps and hope you enjoy your campaign.
Thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy the playthrough, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell symbol so you know when some more videos come out. Also, please feel free to leave anything in the comments below. I would love to hear from everyone. Are you excited for Pandemic Zero? Have you played through a lot of it? What do you think of the game that you've played so far? Are you excited to get it? I'd love to hear what everybody has to say. Now, if you're excited to see what comes next, then I need you to meet me at the table.